Let's talk about the curse of the Ubuyashiki family. First, children of the Ubuyashiki family are all destined to die at age 13, except for one. Maybe this was a punishment from God for unleashing a monster like Muzan into the world. But then, why not just punish Muzan himself? Muzan once said, "There's no such thing as God. I've been killing people for years but haven't had any repercussions." He made it pretty clear that he's not scared of God. So why is God letting him do this? Perhaps Muzan is too strong even for God? But I don't know, that sounds like a pretty mediocre God to me. It seems like God wants Muzan gone, but killing members of the Ubuyashiki family, that only helps Muzan. If taking out Muzan is the main objective, maybe this God is just getting in the way. But maybe God has other plans. Maybe he thought if they had too many siblings, they'd fight over inheritance, distracting the family from their fight against Muzan. So God decided to kill them all except for one. Maybe that's why. And taking out the one that survived at age 30? Maybe God didn't want one person in power for too long. When someone's in power for too long, it usually doesn't end well. And the one that survived? If I can live for many more years, I don't care about Muzan. Maybe God was worried about something like this happening. So in a way, this is God's way of applying pressure. Kill Muzan before you turn 30 or else. That would make sense, but then that leads us to the next question. The girls of the Ubuyashiki family. If they get married and change their last name, the curse is lifted. They can go on to live a normal life. That sounds odd. God wanted to punish them for unleashing a monster like Muzan into the world. You can change your last name, but that doesn't change the fact that you're still related to Muzan by blood. But for some reason, God decided to let them off the hook if they got married. It seems too generous and odd. Does God not care about the blood that runs in their veins? Is it just the family name God's after? By that logic, if everyone just changed their last name, the curse would be gone? If they did that, would God change up the rules? It just seems odd. God could have made this much more simple. As long as Muzan is alive, you're all cursed. Take him out and the curse will be lifted. Pretty straightforward, right? It seems like there's a lot of focus on things like marriage and inheritance. Strange. And there's more. If a man marries a woman who works for God, they get more years on their lives. But why? It just seems weird. What are his true intentions? It just doesn't sound very godlike. Anyways, when we look at mythologies of Japan, there are many gods out there with human characteristics, so maybe that's why this god feels more like a human than a god. Let's go over the rules one more time. Not sure why, but one person gets to live for many years. Change your last name and you're off the hook. Marry a woman who works for God and you get more years on your life. It's a very strange curse. The kanji for the word curse is also used for the word spell. In the world of Demon Slayer, I feel like these don't have much of an effect. What I mean is the warding mask. Those who drop it or break it survive, and those who held onto it, they died. It feels like in the world of Demon Slayer, everything's up to God. Spells, curses. I don't think they have much of an effect in this world. But then this curse. Maybe it's caused by humans. It might be a long shot, but hear me out. I'm pretty sure it's a curse from God like we see in the story, but just in case, let's look at some ways this can be caused by humans. First suspect on my list? I love her, but Amane's family. I love her very much, but I had to think about it. Hopefully, I'll be able to prove myself wrong by doing so. As mentioned before, if you marry a woman who works for God, you get to live longer. That also means a woman can use this to her advantage, like marry someone from the prestigious Ubuyashiki family. After getting married, she starts taking care of the family by cooking for them. Then she starts poisoning them one after the other, making it look like an illness. Things like this have actually happened in ancient Japan. So this woman and her family, before she was even married, they somehow poisoned the members of the Ubuyashiki family. Maybe they bribed the chef. It's possible. Things like this have happened in real life, so why keep poisoning them after she got married? By doing so, the members of the Ubuyashiki family will think that the curse is still there. If they think that, naturally they'll make their kids marry a woman who works for God. And the symptoms we saw? It's very similar to the symptoms when someone gets poisoned. Is this just a coincidence? And the kids of the Ubuyashiki family, sometimes they die in an accident, not just illnesses. If this is God's curse, why not just kill everyone the same way? It just seems easier that way. But if humans are behind this, it would make sense. Some characters in Demon Slayer, poisons don't work well on them. In such cases, maybe they can take them out and make it look like an accident. My theory here is maybe Amene's family is the one behind all this. But then again, I think this is a long shot. First of all, Kagaya Ubuyashiki and the other Oyakata-sama from the past. It's hard to believe that they'd hand out money like that or give them that much power. They would most likely spend their resources on the Demon Slayer core. So, especially during the Taisho era, there's really no reason for Amane's family to join the Ubuyashiki family. And another thing. Kagaya Ubuyashiki is a brilliant man. If this was planned by humans, he'd see it from a mile away. He would never fall for it. Is this really God's curse? It's hard to imagine that he'd just accept and believe something without looking into it himself. If he had any doubts, he'd get to the bottom of it. So I don't think it was his family. It just doesn't seem possible. Kagaya Ubuyashiki would never fall for something like that. So in conclusion, my guess is Amane-san was his loving and caring wife just as she is depicted in the series. Even when it was snowing out, she cleaned herself with water for Kagaya-sama. She did this to cleanse herself. Then in her final moments, she fought to the death alongside her husband. If she was doing all this for money and power, I don't think she would have done that. Which leads me to believe that her love for him was real. So that leads me to my next suspect, Muzan. During the Heian era, Muzan was sick too. They said he wouldn't make it past 20. And his family, they couldn't find a cure for this. This infuriated him, so he used blood demon art to poison his family. The poison got passed down to their kids, causing them to die. At first I thought this made sense, but I don't think this is it either. First, if Muzan was behind the curse, he wouldn't just let them off the hook by changing their last name. And another thing, the poison from the blood demon art. Is it possible to activate or deactivate the poison at will? I doubt it. And if Muzan is behind this, why let one person survive? Maybe he did it to make their family suffer for longer. That would make sense, I guess, but leaving one guy alive, this forced him to be on the run for more than 1,000 years, so I dunno. Having said all that, I don't think it was Muzan either. I can't think of anyone else, so my guess is it was a curse after all. But one more thing. This is just my speculation, but I feel like Goto Uge Sensei initially had something else in mind, something other than a curse. But for some reason, Sensei decided to make it a curse at the last minute. Maybe that's why this curse feels a bit odd. Maybe the initial story went something like this. The curse wasn't actually real. The Oyakata-sama from the past sorted out his own kids himself. Then when the time came, he took his own life. Maybe this is what Sensei had in mind at first. Then it would all make sense. Let's see what that would have been like. First, Oyakata-sama selects those he wants to keep. Then he poisons the other children who didn't get picked for selection. Maybe that's what the big, poisonous snake behind him symbolizes. We saw this in the original manga. Then he killed all of his kids but one, maybe so they wouldn't fight over inheritance? But if that was his only goal, why poison them one by one like that? Why not just kill them and get it over with? Well, if he did that and his kids kept dying in strange ways, someone in the Demon Slayer Corps would have noticed. That'd be bad for everyone. So he blamed Muzan for this curse. It was the curse that was killing the kids, not him. And if people believe this, he can use it until Muzan was dead. And if his people believed that taking out Muzan will save Oyakata-sama, then it would really bring everyone together. This works well for him, but unlike God, Oyakata-sama doesn't want to kill his children if he doesn't have to. So he made the rule about changing the last name. Once they're out of the family, they're not entitled to his inheritance, so why not just let them live, right? And if someone says marrying a woman who works for God will save him, then just go with it. Just change the dose of the poison or something to make it more realistic. Then people would have no reason to doubt that the curse is real. Him going to see the Shinto priest for advice? In this version, he only did it to make things look more realistic, to show everyone that he was in need of help. After he makes his selection, he gets rid of the others so that the family can focus on its battle against Muzan. This would be the best way to take out Muzan. Also, this relates to the subject of final selection, which is often criticized. My guess is Goto Uge-sensei knew there'd be criticisms about the final selection, but that's why the story didn't end there. Oyakata-sama killed his own kids too. He selected them and killed them himself. Then we see him for the first time after the final selection when we find out that 5 survived. This is foreshadowing which will be recovered in his last scene. Only 1 can survive the selection, not 5. That's a scary thought. And Oyakata-sama died before reaching 30. Once he realized the younger generation was ready, he started poisoning himself. Why? Because a family doesn't need 2 leaders. If he dies, it'll increase morale, and the soldiers all die young. Him living on for years, it wouldn't help increase morale, so he took his own life. He chose an heir, and once he thought he was ready, he took his life. His last job was to die young. And he didn't tell his wife about it. He only told the last Oyakata-sama about it. If this was the initial storyline, then it would kinda make sense. They made a selection and killed their kids, making it look like a curse. It was like a tradition of the Ubuyashiki family. In this version, if the kids were already poisoned, they'd still die even if they took out Muzan. But the next generation, they'd be able to live a normal life. But still, this version is too intense. Tengen-san's dad did something similar though. He selected his kids and got rid of the others, but he's depicted as the villain, so I guess it's okay. Things like this actually happened in real life too back in the Sengoku era. When twins were born, they killed one. So it's understandable if the Ubuyashiki family did the same. Maybe Muzan Kibutsuji's illness was part of their tradition as well. Let's get back to the subject. The Ubuyashiki family is depicted as the hero, so maybe the author thought it was too much, or maybe the editor put a stop to it. Either way, the current version isn't that traumatizing, so I guess it all worked out. So if the kids were dying due to the curse, that means Sensei added the part about God's curse at the end. That would explain a lot, I think. And in the version that didn't see the light of day, they kept the tradition alive for generations, kinda like the Hinokami Kagura. Selecting which one of your children gets to live, then poisoning yourself. He went through all that to take out Muzan. Is he the devil who kills children? Or was he a true hero who saved the people? It's pretty intense, I know, but I like dark stories like this, so I enjoyed thinking about it. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, if God was the one behind all this, I think that's nice too. But the fact is, the first person Muzan killed back in the Heian era was family. meaning the victim was family to the Ubuyashikis as well. In other words, hatred towards Muzan was what started all this. Then things spun out of control. It's a nice contrast between the Hinokami Kagura. I like dark stories like this. Again, these are all just speculation, and I'm most likely wrong. But still, it was pretty interesting to think about. Okay then, going back to the original version of the story. The Ubuyashiki family? They never stopped once. For more than 1,000 years they kept fighting for the people. Then, similar to the final selection, God took their children away. They suffered just like everyone else, but they kept going after Muzan for more than 1,000 years. They knew if they changed their last name, they could put all this behind them. But they didn't do that. The Ubuyashiki family stood tall and fought to the end. The Ubuyashiki family and Kagaya Ubuyashiki, they're true heroes. And tonight, the fight that lasted over a millennium is finally coming to an end. Can't wait to see how this ends. Next, let's talk about To the Hashira training. I had a few questions that came to mind. First, the song the girl was singing. I thought that was a really important message. That song was the New Year's song. So maybe it's suggesting that it was the last day of the year or the first. That means in the Kamado family, the Hinokami Kagura performance begins at night on the last day of the year. And tonight, in the final battle against Muzan, the oldest of the Kamado family performs the Hinokami Kagura sun breathing to end it all. Pretty intense, right? Next, the priest the Ubuyashiki family talked to. How did he know about Muzan? In the original anime, Muzan doesn't hide his face when fighting. He's a pretty famous figure, so I guess the priest already knew about him. Next, when the Ubuyashiki mansion exploded and the Hashira arrived, Sanemi says, "What have you done to Oyakata-sama?" But Oyakata-sama was the one behind it. He only told Gyomei-san about the explosion. So Sanemi and the others, they probably think Muzan was the one behind it. And Oyakata-sama? I think this was part of the plan. If they think Muzan killed the Oyakata-sama, then it would help them in the fight. At least, that's what I think. But when the Ubuyashikis and Tamayo-san close in on Muzan, maybe it was just me, but for a moment I felt like the hero-villain structure flipped. What I mean is, in that scene, Muzan seemed like the normal one, and the Ubuyashikis and Tamayo-san, they were the crazy ones. They were like the devil. The thing I love the most about this scene is the message. When humans go mad, it surpassed demons. Instead of showing how terrifying demons can be, the author focused on how humans can be more dangerous. It was pretty deep. Then finally, the members of Demon Slayer Corps start falling into the Infinity Castle. It was such a cool scene. I cannot wait for the third movie. Will it come out next year? Or a year after that? I guess we'll find out. Until then, I'm gonna keep uploading videos like this to show my love for Demon Slayer. That's all for now. For more Demon Slayer theories, please like and subscribe for more videos. See you soon.